Movies have the unique capability to highlight societal fears in a manner accessible to the general public. With the increase of discoveries in neuroscience and advancements in computer science, the public has begun to imagine a world where the once distant idea of mind control is not so far off. Mind control isn't a voodoo doll or a magic power or an alien invasion. It is simply the altering of one's identity through memories and actions. And while today we are thankfully unable to live out the Lacuna procedure from The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, or Slayer in Society from Gamer, the basis for these technologies are currently being studied. But in order to understand today's films, we must first look back. Fears of mind control reached an all-time high during the early years of the Cold War. The American media portrayed the Soviet Union as a country of the blind, where citizens' individual identities were erased and replaced as cogs in a machine that dictated where to work, what to say, and how to feel. They feared the seeming loss of individual independence in the Soviet Union, and literature and film of the Cold War reflected a growing fear of an all-consuming conformity that seemed to be gripping the East, with movies like Invasions of the Body Snatchers, novels turned into movies like The Manchurian Candidate, and George Orwell's classic 1984. The Manchurian Candidate tells the tale of a patriotic American soldier home from Korea who has been brainwashed and kills all of his loved ones. 1984's totalitarian state, where thought control and brainwashing were the norm, represented everything that America feared about Stalin's USSR. The Invasion of the Body Snatchers is one of hundreds of movies that represented Americans losing self-control and freedom. All three of these tales reflected the same fears, the corruption of one of the few sacred places, the mind and one's thoughts. In fact, during the 1950s, body snatcher films and their antithesis, the Western, ruled the big screen. In Westerns, the lone cowboy roams the wild and untamed land, choosing his own fate via his actions. Interestingly, Gamer seems to be an updated sci-fi flick from the 1950s. After all, the main plot involves American citizens being turned into thought-controlled zombie-like puppets, and Joel's quest to save his memories of Clementine is similar to an old cowboy trying to save his treasured land. But how does the technology to control the mind even work? Well, in Gamer, self-replicating nanites are inserted into the motor cortex. They quickly erase all of the brain's natural neurons, replacing them with newly modified cells that allow a third party to control all motor functions, including running, walking, speaking, and killing. And the Lacuna procedure from The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind maps memory traces and then zaps them with a robotic helmet. Thankfully, these technologies are unavailable today, but the scientific community is making daily discoveries leading us closer to them. For instance, a research team recently implanted a device to record the activity of the motor cortex and translated the activity into signals for robotic arms designed to help those with paralysis. Although this study was only able to help patients control robotic arms, a device similar could be used to reanimate paralyzed muscles. While the technology is being developed with good intentions, if someone was able to hack the computer neuronal interface, it would probably be able to be controlled by a source other than the person whose motions it controls. Technology to control muscles inorganically would be similar to the system that powers Slayers in Society and Gamer, in that it can control motor movements but not thoughts or emotions. Lacuna made targeted memory erasure look easy, but in reality it is not so simple. A whack to the head or a stroke might cause the brain damage necessary for amnesia, but these are not exact enough techniques to destroy specific memories. Essentially, there are 2 points at which memories can be erased: consolidation and reconsolidation. During these times, the memory is susceptible to being forgotten if a patient ingests certain drugs, like a protein blocker, or, more frequently, copious amounts of alcohol. For instance, extended alcohol abuse can lead to Korsakoff syndrome, a disease marked by severe retrograde amnesia, a steady onset of anterograde amnesia, and confabulation, or more commonly known as mistaken memories. Even prolonged alcoholics can begin to display signs of memory loss without being classified as Korsakoff patients. For instance, the self-narrative hypothesis says that in a healthy individual, one sense of self is largely based on the period of late adolescence, from 15 to 25. However, over the course of one's life, the sense of self develops. But in a long-term alcohol abuser, one's sense of self appears to be stuck in these formative years. This means that even though the middle-aged alcoholic is obviously different from his or her 25-year-old self, they are still stuck repeating the same mistakes that they were 20 years ago. Although the technological abilities for mind control is not available yet, it is still frighteningly easy to imagine the implications for the world. In The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Lacuna was privatized and relatively uncommon. However, Gondry includes the pressure on Mary to erase her memories because in a relatively innocent relationship of employer and employee, and of lovers, the dominant figure was able to coerce his subordinate to bend to his will, which is undoubtedly an abuse of power. While Mary's coercion to erase her memories of Dr. Merzowak subtly implies the possibilities for abuse of the procedure, Gamer's message is far more obvious. Gamer, the American government pioneered the concept in an attempt to create the perfect soldier, supported attempts to legalize society, and handed over its citizens to be used as human fodder and slayer. If the American people were terrified of the totalitarianism of the Soviet Union during the Cold War, they would be petrified by these new possibilities. A government equipped with the power to erase its citizens' memories and control their actions has the power to commit atrocities over and over again. When mind control stops being the subject of science fiction and becomes the subject of documentaries, our world must remember to use its power for creation and healing, not for destruction and death.